Alright, look what came in my mail. I put one on just to test it right now, but basically filters for the Mavic Mini. I still didn't get like the parts and stuff for the Mavic Pro. It's been like so long, huh? So I guess this is good. I can test whether or not you can make things look as cinematic as possible. Because originally when the Mavic Mini came out, as some people may be aware, you couldn't control any of the modes, like for the lighting or the color temperature. Everything was auto. But now that you can change pretty much everything manually, including things like the shutter speed, filters and stuff could be really useful. So here's a test. Can you make cinematic footage and all that with the Mavic Mini? As you guys may know, I fly this stuff a lot, like virtually every day when the weather cooperates. So this will be a real test and not just a one-day thing either. So my first test is to test out things like how water would look with polarized filters, because it actually does come with polarizer filters, and at the same time something with motion, because the whole point of using stuff like this is so you can maintain things like the shutter speed. Usually you want to go about 2 times of your frame rate. So if you're shooting, for example, 30 FPS, then you want to keep your shutter speed at 1/60th. Actually, funny enough, with these filter sets, even with my Mavic Pro, the highest ones I've had was an ND32. And this one has like what, a 64? So that's for really super bright situations. And one of the concerns I would have with using stuff like this for the Mini is, one, does it make the weight go over 250? Because that's the whole incentive to fly the Mini in a lot of places, is to stay under that weight threshold. But apparently this keeps it under still, so it's all good in that department. Actually, it feels so light that it feels like you can actually break it really easily. That's what I'm concerned about, just like the wear and tear. Putting it back on the drone and then back out. Hopefully you can see this. Basically it's like this little hook and it goes underneath the gimbal. So you want to put it on top. And it kind of hooks onto those little edges like on the bottom of the gimbal there. Now usually what you can do to adjust the look of the polarization effect is to adjust a little wheel. So that's usually, you'd have to turn this thing. And essentially the more you turn it to a certain direction, the darker it will be. So it's kind of, I guess, a little finicky if you try to do it on the actual gimbal, which I'll kind of do it here just to show. So you can see it was getting darker and lighter, but at the same time, it's kind of like fighting the gimbal, it's like trying to stay. So I guess a tip to adjust this without having to mess around with the gimbal is just look through it with your own eyes and turn it into a direction where it looks right to you, and then try to adjust that once you put it on. It'll make it a lot easier than trying to fight the gimbal to adjust the position. Okay, that's looking awesome. It really gets rid of the glare like in the water, which is what they should do. Okay, I was getting semi-windy and it seemed like the gimbal was struggling to stay, and now it says gimbal motor overload. So first technical difficulty. Okay, it seemed to fix itself, but maybe it's getting a little too heavy because of the wind, and it is like a really light drone, because I've never seen it happen before, like with the Pro and stuff when I use the filters. And the filter isn't that heavy. So just from doing a test, it seems like if you do like say a sharper turn, then all of a sudden it gets really, I guess, heavy, like the force is too much. So it could be like with the strong wind and stuff like that, obviously with a little extra weight. Bug casualty this flight. Okay, I want to try to test some movement shots with some objects like a train and maybe get some sunsets. So let's see how stable this is. If it will basically be too heavy like before, or it's just because of the wind. Okay, so I did the test. Quality-wise, in terms of picture, you can get a pretty good picture quality, just like what I got before, like with my Mavic Pro. The drawback seems like so far is during times when the wind is pretty harsh and you do like say a sharp turn, then all of a sudden it seems like the gimbal is struggling a little bit, just the slightest. But if you're doing something, for example, what I often do where I go straight up, I do like a pan and so forth, that should be perfectly fine. So I have to do more testing because usually, as you guys know, this is not going to be like a one-day thing. So to be more specific, the one that I got was the Freewell All Day Pack. And again, if you're using things like polarizer filters, I would recommend that you just look through the filter and kind of adjust it, like turn it in a circle and see what's the right position that you would like it to be in. And then afterwards, just put it right on the drone at that position. Here, there are these little lines on the actual filter, so it'll tell you exactly what the position should be. I think that's better than actually just taking it on the gimbal and trying to adjust it while it's on. I can't imagine that's too good for the drone too, if you're trying to like jerk it around and trying to fight you back and forth. So in my opinion, this would be really good for places like water, which is why I did the test today. You can clearly see the difference when you use things like a polarized filter for that, getting rid of the glare. At the same time, even from capturing things like the motions of the vehicles, the trains, and especially trying to capture things like the sunlight, it looks a lot better overall when you use the filters. Quality-wise, I can't judge it just yet because I don't want to do like this one-day thing saying, oh, this is the best ever. So I'll continue to use it as usual. I mean, this is as real as it gets. You guys saw all the errors that occurred and all the highs and the lows. All right, see you guys later.